pigtails. Does anyone know what restaurant still does like barbecue pigtails? Just shout it out if you know. Oh, lots. Okay. All right. Find me afterwards, and then we'll pigtail it out. Now she's got a look of horror on her face. She's like, no. Okay, so if you're tweeting during this session, it's SMBWR. Is the hashtag if you want to tweet anything, and go ahead. I notice this is also being recorded, so I cannot lie during this session because it'll be on YouTube forever, and I'll never be Prime Minister if they catch me out in a lie. Up on the screen you can see my Google Plus profile. For what it's worth, if you enjoy Google Plus, add me in your circle. Let's be circle buddies. I like that. Or on LinkedIn. And of course I work for artez.com, just to let you know what the company is. It's an online fundraising company, so we are the back end for, if you made a donation to the Red Cross online, that would be our back end. If you did the Terry Fox run and you made a personal page or team page, that sort of thing, that would be our software too. So just so you know our setup. And what we're going to do is I'm going to start off with the first half of this presentation. I'm going to be talking about some of the really big trends in the charitable sector that we see that intersect with online, social, and mobile. We're going to talk about what a lot of Canadian organizations are doing, because I like to speak to Canadian audiences about what Canadians are doing, because yay, go Canada. And Scottish Claire can promote Scotland later on if she would like to do that in the charitable sector, but today I'm all about Canada. And then for the first half, I'm going to bring you those little case studies and talk about those trends. And then Claire's going to take you into a deep dive using Prezi. Do you guys enjoy Prezi as a presentation tool? Yeah, some people are nodding. Okay, cool. I find it so confusing, but I enjoy the zooming. And she's going to look at the brand new Facebook pages. So those of you that are community managers who haven't flipped over your Facebook page, it's going to happen to you on March 30th. So some people I think are a little bit grinning, and they're thinking, should I have done it immediately the first day? Well, you have about a month in order to think about how you're going to handle that. So also, I really, really enjoy LOL cats. Basically, the reason the internet was invented. So there are cats throughout this presentation as a decorative function. So you don't need to take any notes about the cats, but you might just want to, absorb the enjoyment. That's for you guys. Okay, so these are the trends that we're going to be going through before we get into the hands-on session with Claire. Well, when I talk to charities and nonprofits, and by the way, how many people here are either work for a charity, nonprofit, or you volunteer with one? Just go throw up your hand. So, wow, quite a lot. Okay, how many of you guys are business owners, business people, industry people? Okay, awesome. All right, so then I was going to say you would be sort of a little bit out of luck if you have no interest in the charitable sector whatsoever and you came to this session, so I'm so excited that we're all on the same page. When I talk to charities and nonprofits, I no longer have to make the case for social media. So the case has been made. So we don't usually have to do a social media 101 where you sort of explain, this is why you might want to consider Twitter, this is why you might want to consider Facebook. That was more a 2009-2010 discussion. Now the discussion we have are how do we leverage these channels, how do we leverage them for fundraising, how do we leverage them for outreach. That's typically the discussion that we have in this space. Now, last week you might have noticed that ComScore came out with a benchmarking report, which was really exciting. And it showed that in all of planet Earth, Canadians spend the most time online. So either that means that we're downloading quite a lot of content. It does. It means that we love our online video. We love our downloads. We spend more hours online than any other country on planet Earth. And so that means that we're really, really high in terms of online engagement. Does that mean that we are always #1 innovators? Not necessarily, but it certainly means that Canadians themselves are digital natives. I hope you enjoy my clip art baby boomer couple here. This is Ipsos Re. They really like to dive into how Canadians use social networks, and of course over 60% of online Canadians, including this clip art couple, maintain at least one social networking profile. And I think that most people, you're here for social media breakfast, you're aware of the demographics in terms of social media, but what is particularly interesting, I think, is this arrow here. Ladies are more likely than men to visit social networking sites more than once a day. And the takeaway for charities and nonprofits here is that for many organizations, and depending on their sector, depending on their demographics, their average donor, their average supporter is a woman in her 20s, or in her 30s to 40s. The average internet user in Canada, woman between her 30s and 40s. And so there's like the natural a natural match there for organizations that are thinking about getting online. So when people say, no, 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 not my donors, no, 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 not my supporters, they're not doing social, I'm like, really? Because my mom was on Pinterest before me. So, I don't know, we'll joke about Pinterest later. So I mentioned that my company is back-end software for a lot of charities, hundreds of charities around the world, and what that allows me to do in my job is to roll up all the statistics for user behavior on fundraising and donation pages, pages that are associated to things that charities do online. And that gives us a lot of really, really good insights. And one of the major things that we are noticing are trends in social referral and in mobile across the board. But I like to look at just North America for the purposes of this presentation. So one thing that we know in 2012 is that right now Facebook is the top referrer to charity pages on our system. Again, these are hundreds and hundreds of charities that are using them. With 12% referral from regular Facebook and 2% from mobile alone, and that's something that we haven't seen before. So if you take out search, you take out direct, and that sort of thing, the top referrer is one social networking site, and it won't surprise anybody that Facebook is the most popular commercial social network in North America by far. I think something like 80 to 90% of people that have a social networking account are on Facebook. So it won't surprise you guys because I know that most of you will be on it. So we usually ask our charities to take a look at their own statistics, get into their Google Analytics, and I know that that's and we're going to update that image because that's the old Google Analytics. I think that the professionalism in me is like, oh no, we need to update that background image because Google Analytics doesn't look like that anymore, but that's for Google Analytics Social Media Breakfast, the next one that you do. We know how charities use social media. They typically set up a Facebook account, a Twitter account, slap the icon on their website. And I think it's very familiar to people now. You go to a charity website, you see icons slapped in the top right corner, like this is our Flickr, this is our YouTube, that sort of thing, and you click it and it takes you off to the social networking site instead of being integrated. So there's really no surprise that they say that 92% of the top 50 nonprofits have a social media presence. In Canada, that's the same too. The majority of charities have at least one that they regularly update. But when you look at that in perspective, I think that this is a really interesting thing when we consider how the media writes about charities and nonprofits. And I think that if you were to only take a look at how newspapers and television handle social media and charities, you would think that everyone was raising millions of dollars through Twitter, that Twitter is the only mechanism for doing anything online. If you look at a charity's typical fundraising, all of their fundraising, so that could be direct mail, that could be telemarketing, that could be all the different ways, grants and major donors. If you are a top performer in Canada, depending on your sector, you are only raising 10 to 14% of your cash online. That would make you a top performer, and the average in North America is around 6%. So it's really quite a small channel. However, it's the fastest growing channel, and it's the most cost-effective channel. So for charities that are not managing to raise $2 million from Facebook in the last quarter, I don't worry. In terms of benchmarking, you're doing quite well. The Social Network Benchmark report that came out last March, so I'm looking forward to this year's report, indicated that only 0.4% of the charities surveyed were raising over $100,000 through Facebook. The majority were raising 0 to 1,000, and most were raising nothing from other networks like Twitter, YouTube, those other ones. So I'm really excited to see what the report says this year, to see if we're doing a little bit better, but I think that the takeaway for charities is to relax on that issue. However, here's some positive news. People who are online and they are active for you, they are in your community, they're on your mailing list, they signed your petition, they're 7 times more likely to make a transaction on your behalf than those who have not done anything online for you before. So a great reason why you should grow your community. And of course, I like to point this out that not only is online giving the fastest growing channel, it is the most cost effective. Here's some acquisition stats for those of you that are really into acquisition. The cost to acquire your first donor through direct mail, $1.25, an online donor, 7 cents. So that's fantastic as well. And processing, of course, is cheaper. Okay, so let's get into trends and start looking at some pretty cool case studies. So this cat is magical. So enjoying that cat. Okay, the first big trend is social login, also known as social sign-in or single sign-on. So I absolutely love this. How many people love to log into new websites using their Facebook ID or their Twitter ID? I do. I got to read the user thing and go like, oh my gosh, it wants all of my personal data? Oh, all right, you know. I trust you. A site that's in beta, I'm sure that's fine. Oh, this is a huge trend. So what's fantastic, quite a lot of organizations are using it. Does anybody know Taking IT Global? This is a community, an online community that's been around over 10 years now. It's for youth, connecting them on global issues. They allow you to log in using your Facebook, your Google ID, your Windows Live ID for those of you that enjoy your Hotmail, Twitter. One of the fantastic things about social login is that it is truly a single sign-on experience where you're avoiding using a separate username or password. So it's excellent for communities. This is Get Involved TBO. Again, they allow you to use Facebook in order to log in. So that means if I was logged into Facebook, I could click right into my own community here for TBO's Get Involved. And you see this a lot on the US portal sites too, those that have added this feature. So this is change.org. Again, it's a petition-based site. You can see that you can log in here. You can sign petitions using your Facebook ID. That's really fantastic. And one of the things that recently came out in January was a report specifically on social login. I think this is a trend that's a little bit under the radar, but suddenly we're going to start seeing it everywhere. Of those people that are social media users, 77% would prefer to say, yes, click with Facebook, than traditional registration. First name, last name, username, all that sort of stuff, right? So that's actually a really interesting stat for those of you who are thinking about ways to engage your online community. You know that they are into this stuff. Another cool thing that people can do when it comes to social login is you can use the features of Facebook like Facebook commenting. So has anybody commented on TechCrunch? You know that they have Facebook comments. This is actually causes.com that uses Facebook comments, and so not only does the comment appear on the platform, it also appears on your Facebook stream, leading to a really funny incident on TechCrunch where someone had commented on a technology article, and then his mother typed underneath, "Honey, you have to call me, blah blah blah," and every single TechCrunch user was like, "James, call your mother, James," which is pretty wicked. Other things you can do when you have integrated Facebook is you can allow your donors or your registrants to log in with Facebook and then have that data populate into your form. And so this is an option I'm really excited to see how people adopt it. This is Rethink Breast Cancer. Again, you can make a donation just typing in all of your details, or you can connect with Facebook. One of the things people always ask me about this, and here's another organization that's using it for registration for a fundraising event. So instead of using a username and password to log into your fundraising account for an event, you can just log in and out with Facebook. One of these things that people always ask, like privacy issues, like data issues, does this mean that they're going to get all of my friends' data? Every app or implementation is different, and each one will always tell you when you go to approve the app, what is it going to take from my account? And so in these cases for these charities, it's stuff like first name, last name, email address, and, does not allow you to post on their other people's walls or all that sort of stuff. And so if you read the small print on social login, you might feel a little bit more comfortable about using it or not using it. It's up to you. Next big trend, visual storytelling. Did you think we could get through one presentation without Pinterest to mention it? Oh, sorry. Pinterest has to be mentioned. So I've actually got up on the screen here, this is the infographic board for Imagine Canada. So if you're on Pinterest, I suggest following Imagine because they have a lot of cool stuff. There are a lot of charities that are doing some neat stuff on Pinterest. It really depends on your own interests, but if you love infographics, this is definitely a big trend. So infographics is a little bit hated, sometimes loved, depending on how particular you are about your data, but it is much easier to communicate what you're trying to get across, or hide data, make it look a little bit better by putting it in a big pie chart and like, oh, I'm fine with that. This is the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and they were trying to communicate the success of their clinical trials, and that's really dry information. So in their annual report, they did everything in infographic format. And so I think that this is pretty cute. I like that. It was a lot easier for people to understand, and what is great about infographics is that they are so shareable. So I'm really not likely to share your annual report, as much as many charities tell me that they think, you know, every word is perfect in their annual report and they think it's so shareable. Something that is an infographic form, it's more likely to be, like we mentioned, pinned on Pinterest. I can share this in other communities. I can easily put this up, Facebook, Twitter, all that sort of stuff. People love to share infographics. Cancer Research UK actually went a little bit further with that, and so they released a media release that was full of infographics. And so what they wanted to show people in this press release was that there has been a dramatic improvement in survival rates for children with leukemia since they started their work. And so they could have said that, they could have put out their graphs, they could have done all of that, but doing it in infographics in the pink and the purple with the stars was a really great way for people to understand what they were talking about. They went even further than that and actually did a video as part of their press release, in which not only did they have their infographics, but they had a child explain their own press release in video, and then embedded this and sent that out. So that's a fantastic way to use multimedia for information sharing. So for those of you that are thinking about visual storytelling, one of the big trends is to use easy tools for this, like Storify. Is anybody using Storify? The Toronto Star uses it as well. It's a fantastic way. You can just go to storify.com. It's free to just to try it out. This is Macmillan Cancer in the UK, and they recently had an event where they asked their supporters what they were doing to support Macmillan Cancer research, and they were able to curate all the responses using Storify. So it can curate tweets, it can curate images, videos, and then display them up in one area. So going back to what Cancer Research UK did, you might be thinking, oh, I don't know if I want to have a multimedia press release. Something like Storify makes it easier for you to curate the content that you already have without having to code stuff and all of that. So it's pretty cool to try out. If you're thinking about building infographics, I also suggest Google.com public data as a great place to play around with it. And so your organization might not have public data, or the information in the public data, this is all open data that Google has collected. You can go through it. It's from like the World Bank, it's from the US government, tons and tons of data sets. It might not be applicable to you, and it might be, depending on your mission or what you're doing. But what's great about this is it's a good place for you to play around with building infographics, because it really it gives you lots of different options for making your own charts and making that sort of thing. So it's fantastic for you to give it a shot and play around with. One of our other big trends is social integration with offline events. And I think this is sometimes where we talk about the magic happening for social media and charities. It's a natural extension for people to tweet about events, for people to share to share on Facebook the things that they're doing offline. One of the really big stats we know is that if people are using social media to fundraise on your behalf, they're going to raise 40% more than those that don't. And this stat has been misinterpreted, I think, by the media a little bit to say that charities that use social media raise 40% more than those that don't. No. This is the supporters on your behalf. And so this is people that I really care about Claire's cause, so I'm going to use Twitter to support her. I really care about social media breakfast, so I tweeted today, that sort of thing. I'm going to have greater success than those that don't. This is Live Below the Line. It's a really cool campaign that is done in many different countries. And the idea of the event is that everyone who's a participant has to live for a week on only $5 or £5. And so that they were essentially, they'd be buying rice, they'd be thinking about water, like bread, like whatever they could to live for the entire week. And of course they were fundraising while they were doing that. So one of the things this campaign recognized is that it seems like we have the impression that everyone knows how to use social media and that everyone is willing to do it on your behalf, but that's not necessarily true, especially if you look at Ipsos read stats for Twitter and LinkedIn are below 20% in Canada. So, I mean, not everybody's on Twitter, even though it sometimes seems like it. So what they did is they created social media toolkits for all of their participants and all of their supporters. And this is a huge trend that I'm seeing. A lot of organizations are going and building these. They went so far as to not only explain what to do on Twitter, but to give the correct handle, to give the hashtag, all of that sort of stuff. Even though this is a campaign that's focused at a younger generation, they still created a social media toolkit. Other organizations that are doing that right on their websites and their online communities are Smile Train in the US, Kids Help Phone has great toolkits for everything that they do, so check out Kids Help Phone. They also embed their Facebook and their Twitter and all their videos in one area so that you're able to go and reach out and steal that multimedia, use that multimedia and spread it around. Okay, mobile awareness. This is one that we really can't look away from. So last year was the first year where smartphone sales now surpassed computer sales globally. A really big trend for us. I think that when the iPad 3 came out, they talked about the post-PC era. Apple is now talking about the post-PC era. Computers are mattering a lot less than smartphones, and so mobile is one of those things that if in 2009 your organization was sort of, we're not going to think about social, and now you're sitting here saying, okay, now I got to think about things to do with social. 2012 is the year where you're going, I don't think about mobile, you know, in a few years, maybe less than that, you're going to have to think about its impact on your business and on your organization. So smartphone penetration in Canada, 45% of us have a smartphone. All the new models coming out, I can't think of any that don't have the data plan or the ability to use apps or access the internet. One of the things we know about social in mobile is that there's this natural connection. So look at this, half the people on Facebook are accessing it through a mobile device. Think about half the people on Twitter use a mobile client. I'm going to ask Claire because she's a Twitter expert. She's using a mobile client right now. So people that are using social have a natural mobile integration. And one of the things we know about people on Facebook that use mobile is that they are twice as engaged as people that use it through the web. So that means the people that are most active and supportive on behalf of your cause are more likely to use a mobile device. So how are you addressing them? Well, one of the things that we realized when we looked at donation and fundraising traffic on our system across North America is now 10% of traffic is coming from mobile devices, that's smartphones and tablets. So those stats are really hard to ignore. So if it was easy to say before, well, I don't think anyone is really visiting our page on a mobile device. It could be that they're attempting to and not able to do anything on your page. But we know that 10% of our traffic that's related to donation and fundraising is from mobile devices. So let's take a look at a cool example. This is if you have your devices out, and you guys, I don't care if you're tweeting, and you don't have to look at me at all. It's like, I prefer that you're actually typing, because then I'm like, yeah, they're getting work done, they're getting their business done. It's good. Getting the tweeting done, it's all good. This is the SalvationArmy.ca. I love the Salvation Army Canada. They have a commitment to cool digital stuff and cool mobile stuff. Recently, they've changed their website. Now, if you run your website, many charities do, on a WordPress platform, one of the things that's fantastic about that is that there are plugins for WordPress to mobile optimize your site without the heartache of having to build a separate mobile site. So if you're one of those organizations that is leveraging WordPress as a platform, that's fantastic. But anyone who's on a smartphone device who wants to go to SalvationArmy.ca right now, what you'll see is some pretty wicked stuff. You'll see that this is not the first mobile version of their site that they've had. They've actually updated it. What they've done is their mobile site really quickly brings all the priority items to your attention. So there's so much stuff going on visually on the web version. On the mobile version, they've put their action items first. And you can do everything from make a donation on the mobile web for Salvation Army to find out about their events, to read their news items. Of course, they have the click to donate or to call. It's all important for them. It's a really great example of an organization that is leveraging mobile. And for business people, this actually came out a couple weeks ago, and it made me sit up. 1 to 5 visitors to a mobile optimized site, make a call to that business. So there's your online-offline integration. There's your, when we talk about that full circle of offline behavior and online behavior, one of the things that is important in this is that the stat says mobile optimized, meaning that if I try to access your site on my BlackBerry or my iPhone or something like that, and it's not mobile optimized, I can't get to that, I'm not going to be the 1 in 5 that then makes an immediate call. Sick Kids Foundation did make a cool experiment last year with their annual report. They made it a mobile version of their annual report. You can see that it's up on the right here. They also have the full site, but the mobile one was a fantastic experiment for them. What's really important when it comes to mobile is the idea of not creating separate links for your mobile site or a separate location. Create a mechanism by which the browser is detected and it flips over to the mobile version. So for instance, Salvation Army, you didn't type in a different URL to get to it. The platform detects what type of browser you have, my grammar, and then flips over automatically. So on our system, what we're seeing now, this is an example of a mobile web donation form. You can pay with credit card or PayPal. It's just regular mobile web. 2.15 of donations are coming through mobile web. So that's mobile devices. This is, again, it doesn't seem like a lot, and of course it's not a lot, but this was in the 0.0 negligible last year. So you have to think about where's it going to be at Christmas time or your big events, that sort of thing. Another interesting trend is in Australia. They have the highest smartphone penetration other than Singapore, I think. So if there's anyone here who's an Aussie, you probably like your mobile devices. In some of their events, we are seeing as high as 7.5% mobile web donations. So that is a trend for North America when we all start to be able to afford our smartphones. Again, I want to be Prime Minister, so I'll have to be... Telecom is entirely reasonable in Canada. Okay, so mobile web's one thing. We have mobile applications. I think when most people think of charities and mobile apps, they're thinking of something like the awesome first aid app from the Red Cross, right? That's useful. I cut myself. How do I make a tourniquet? You know, okay, I'll open up the app and I'll figure it out. There's lots of other things that people are doing. Rethink Breast Cancer, I have them in here again. Have you seen the Your Man Reminder app? Very controversial. So controversial and kind of fun and cheeky, which serves two purposes for a Marcom perspective and from a user perspective. This is you pick a really hot guy that reminds you to check your breasts for breast cancer. It's like pretty cool. I think that the surprise me is like actually like, I'll surprise you with a dude. You don't know which one it'll be. It's a fantastic idea for them, these guys out of Toronto. And then you have ones that have a more educative function. This is the Tate Museum in London. You guys know the Tate Modern. It's a fantastic museum. They have a really, really cool app. Seems like it's for kids, just, you know, but it's really for everyone, including me. You race through the history of modern art, and you have to defeat the evil Dr. Grayscale from taking all the color from the world, and like you play this amazing chameleon. So it's a really fun way to engage. Their mandate, obviously, to promote modern art. The mandate of this app, you can't stop learning. You know, the learning is happening even though I didn't want it to happen. Mobile apps for event fundraising. This is something that makes sense too. So to have a whole app for donation doesn't necessarily make sense. Who goes and downloads an app from the App Store so they can make a donation when there are all these different ways to do it? But event fundraising is a natural extension. So those of you that did something like this Terry Fox Run had a mobile app, or any of those other events where they have a ride or a cycling like type event where they have an app like this. One of the interesting things we're noticing is that participants that use a mobile app are raising a lot more than those that don't use one. And one of the interesting things I've noticed in 2012 is that people that, if I'm a participant in an event, say it's like a run, walk, ride, whatever it is, right, doesn't matter, and I log into my fundraising console through the mobile web, and I use a mobile application, I'm going to be raising more than everybody else. So those people that are way more engaged, we already talked about people that use social raise more than other people. So social and mobile supporters are successful fundraisers, more likely to be successful fundraisers. You probably noticed that I didn't have a shout out to Text to Give. I think those of you in the charitable sector know Text to Give is maybe losing a little bit of its popularity. I think that there's situations where it certainly seems effective, and then for most organizations, a text-to-give program is not the most cost-effective way to raise money, or really can't be leveraged. So, I mean, the case of Haiti and Japan, yes, definitely, that's its own sort of discussion. But these are stats from AFP and Captivate, and one of the things that they noticed last year is a 24% decrease in charities that are actively using text-to-give, and a 25% increase in the use of mobile websites. So people are realizing they've got to get mobile. One of the places to go for this, Google Go Mo. Go check this out if you're a charity or a nonprofit. It's got some good suggestions on mobile optimization, and you can also test your own site, which is kind of fun. So go there. Google Go Mo, test your own site. Okay, another trend, gamification. If anyone is sick of hearing about gamification, I'm so sorry. I enjoy talking about it. It's fun. It's controversial if you're in the e-learning, whether or not you're in industry or business. Everyone's sort of saying, what is gamification? Essentially, it's if whatever your online program is, it uses tools from games to get people to achieve your goals. So that could be something like checking in and earning a badge. That could be, or moving up a level. That could be all of those sorts of features that you would find in a game extended to whatever your program is. And so you want to work your will upon someone and you make them play a game, then you've committed gamification. This is an example of a fundraising event in Australia where they had all the kids move up levels of superheroes depending on how well they did. And it wasn't necessarily related to fundraising. It could have been, I asked 3 friends to join my team. It could have been, I downloaded the toolkit, like all these sort of things that would trigger items. This is Pudsey the bear, who is so cute. This is BBC Kids in Need, Children in Need, which is an event that happens in the UK. What they did is they built their own Facebook application to create the world's largest virtual cake. And the idea was if you made donations, you could decorate the cake. And I went crazy with like icing and sprinkles. And, you know, I was like, oh my God, 8 pounds. Oh, well, you know, it looks really cute. And I also, of course, I personalized the cake. So you can see me down in the corner there. I put myself all over this cake because I'm vain. And then one of the cool things with the app is that it showed you how big the cake was in relation to things you knew. So it was like, the cake is now, if this was a real cake, it'd be the size of Big Ben. If this cake was a real cake, it would be the size of Godzilla, like that kind of stuff. Probably Godzilla's smaller than Big Ben, so I would have gone that way first. This is the American Heart Association. Has anybody seen the hands-only CPR campaign that a lot of heart organizations around the world are doing? It's essentially to promote the idea that you don't need to do the AR part with the mouth for CPR. You can just use the hands. This is a game that it makes you do the compressions in the correct order. You have to stay in the middle to do it sort of at the actual time you're supposed to do it. It's a really fun game, and one of the things I learned is that the beat of the compressions is the same beat as staying alive. So now that you know that, you will never not be able to do compressions. Amnesty International, they had a game with a game with a mobile app. It's called Bulletproof. And the idea is that you blow up bullets before they hit a prisoner of conscience. And so this is really neat. There's lots of different levels. And they had a component that you might think, okay, well, that's sort of fun. I'm playing it on my phone, but like, what does that actually do for the world? To download this game, it was like 59 pence, or like a dollar. So it raised money for Amnesty International, as well as allow you to stop people from being executed, which is fantastic. One of the trends I think is really important for Canada is online video. So Canada consumes, I think, more online video than anybody else.